March 1929. In a mortuary in Croydon, England, two coffins lie open. Inside are a husband and his mother-in-law, both dug out of the ground within days of each other. Both are laced with arsenic. And just streets away, a woman is sitting down with newspaper reporters, calmly telling them she has nothing to hide. Her name is Grace Duff. The dead man was her husband. The dead woman was her mother. A third relative, her own sister, is already in the ground too, killed the same way months earlier. Grace Duff will spend the rest of her life a free woman. No one is ever charged. This is the story of the Croydon Poisonings, one of the strangest unsolved murder cases in British history. Croydon, 1928. A leafy suburb south of London, full of retired civil servants and respectable brick semis. Edmund Duff is one of them. He is 59 years old, a former colonial officer who spent years working in Nigeria before coming home to a quieter life. On the evening of April 26th, he goes fishing. He comes home fine. Then, over the following 2 days, he becomes violently ill. Vomiting, cramping, diarrhea that will not stop. His doctor is called. The doctor has seen dysentery before, and this looks close enough. On April 27th, Edmund Duff dies. His doctor signs the death certificate. Cause of death, gastroenteritis, likely picked up from something he ate. There is no autopsy. There is no suspicion. Edmund Duff is buried in a Croydon cemetery, and for nearly a year, that is the end of it. Accounts suggest his widow, Grace Duff, even received a small life insurance payout without incident. Nobody in Croydon has any reason to think a killer walked among them. That will change with astonishing speed. 10 months pass. February 1929. Vera Sidney is 40 years old, unmarried, living with her elderly mother, Violet, in a comfortable Croydon home. Vera is Grace Duff's sister. On February 11th, Vera plays a round of golf. She feels perfectly well. That evening she is struck by the same symptoms that killed her brother-in-law: violent vomiting, stomach pain, collapse. She dies 4 days later, on February 15th. Once again, a doctor puts it down to natural causes, this time listed as a form of influenza complicated by heart failure. Once again, there is no autopsy. Once again, Vera Sidney is buried without a second thought. Two members of the same family, dead within a year, with nearly identical, agonizing symptoms. And still, nobody in Croydon connects the dots. But the killer, whoever it is, does not appear to be finished. Just weeks later, in the same house, Violet Sidney, Vera's mother and Grace Duff's mother, falls ill in almost exactly the same way. She is 68 years old, vomiting, burning pain in her stomach. This time, one detail makes a doctor pause. Violet had reportedly told people she believed someone had been putting something in her food. Some accounts describe her raising concerns about her health in the days before she died. On March 5, 1929, Violet Sidney dies. This time, her doctor refuses to simply sign the certificate. 3 deaths, 1 family, all with the same violent gastrointestinal collapse, is too much of a coincidence to ignore. He orders tests, and in Violet Sidney's remains, pathologists find something no one expected to find in quiet, respectable Croydon: arsenic. Once arsenic turns up in Violet's body, investigators cannot ignore the 2 deaths that came before her. Police apply to exhume both Edmund Duff and Vera Sidney. Their coffins are opened, months and, in Edmund's case, nearly a year after burial. Pathologists test the remains of all 3. All 3 come back positive for arsenic poisoning. Inquests are held for each death. In Violet Sidney's case, and in Edmund Duff's case, the juries return a verdict of murder by person or persons unknown. Vera Sidney's inquest returns an open verdict: the poisoning suspected but not conclusively proven to the jury's satisfaction. Scotland Yard now has an active murder investigation: 1 family, 1 house, 1 killer somewhere among a small circle of people who all had access to the same table, the same kitchen, the same medicine cabinet. And at the center of that circle sits 1 woman connected to every single victim: the daughter, the sister, the widow, Grace Duff. Grace Duff loses her husband, her sister, and her mother in less than a year. She is the one surviving link between all 3. Investigators reportedly look hard at her finances. Accounts suggest Grace was in financial difficulty around the time of her husband's death, and that she stood to benefit from both the insurance payout and, eventually, her mother's estate. She had also, by some accounts, been unhappy in her marriage. None of that proves murder. But as the press catches wind of the case, Grace Duff becomes the story. Reporters come to her door, and rather than refuse them, she talks. She gives interviews insisting on her innocence, describing herself as a grieving widow and daughter caught up in a nightmare not of her making. Even as investigators are still working out exactly how the poison was administered 3 separate times. It is a strange, almost theatrical moment. A woman calmly making her case in the newspapers while the exhumed bodies of her husband and her mother sit on mortuary slabs barely a mile away. The press eats it up. Scotland Yard, however, has a much harder problem. They have a very strong theory. They do not have anything close to proof. Arsenic, in 1929, is not hard to come by. It is in weed killer, in flypaper, in rat poison sold over the counter at any chemist shop. That makes it almost impossible to trace a single purchase back to a single suspect. Investigators cannot pin down exactly when the poison was given, in what food, or by whose hand, in any of the 3 deaths. Grace Duff is questioned repeatedly. So are other relatives with access to the household. But no forensic link, no witness, and no confession ever surfaces. Without that, prosecutors decide they cannot bring a case that would hold up in court. By late 1929, the investigation quietly stalls. No one is ever arrested. No one is ever charged. Grace Duff goes on living, remarries years later, and dies in 1973, well into her 80s, having outlived the scandal by more than 4 decades. The Croydon Poisonings remain, to this day, one of British criminal history's great unsolved cases. 3 people, 1 family, 1 house, and a poison so common no one could ever prove who used it. The Croydon case is a reminder that certainty and justice do not always arrive together, even when the evidence points somewhere. If you want more real unsolved cases from history, subscribe and let us know in the comments which mystery we should dig into next.